In this session, we will try to uncover control flow statements. So what are control flow statements? Generally, the flow of execution in any programming language is always sequential. If we have a program like this with so many lines, the program execution is sequential. So if we want to interrupt that flow of execution, then we should go for control flow statements. So for example, I have certain lines of code, and say for example, I have a condition A and condition B. So I need to execute these lines of code when condition A is true. And I want to execute this block of code when condition B is true. For these kind of statements, we call it as selection statements. Now let's suppose I have another set of programming lines, and say I have so many lines of code. In this block, for example, I need to repeat this block of code. Then I need to go for iterative statements, otherwise also known as loops. Now let's see the third variety. For example, I have another block of code, and at this point, I've decided that the execution is complete and I don't need to execute all these lines of codes. Then I need to go for transfer statements. So in selection statements, there are different subtypes or categories. First one is a simple if. And then the second one is if else. And the third one is else if. And the fourth one is nested if. And the fifth one is switch case. Likewise, in iterative statements, we have different types of iterative statements. The first one is while loop. The second one is a do while loop. And the third one is for loop. And the fourth one is for each loop. And in transfer statements, we have different categories. We are going to uncover break and we're going to uncover continue. So let's begin with selection statements. And I'll pick the first one, which is the simple if. So how does the syntax look like? It starts with an if and a condition, and maybe some lines of code, and then if block ends. So when the program is executed, first we will evaluate some condition. If the condition is true, then then the true block, which is inside the if statements, are executed. Let's see one simple example. Say, for example, double salary is equal to $45,000. And I have, since it's a double, let's put it as decimal point, and character gender is equal to female or F. Then let's do system out line. Let's print the initial salary is salary. Then let's put an if condition, and gender is equal to female. Then salary is equal to salary plus salary into, let's say, 5%. 5% raise. And then close the if block, and then try to print the updated salary. Let's try to compile this code and then execute. So if you see here, the gender is female, and for that reason, we got a 5% raise. Now let's change the gender to male. Let's save and compile, execute. The initial salary and the updated salary is same. This is a simple if example. Now let's uncover if else. So the syntax will look like if condition, then we have if block, and then close the if, else we have else block and some lines of code or block of code. This is how the syntax for if else would look like. First, we will evaluate some condition. If the condition is true, then if block is executed. If the condition is false, then else block statements will be executed. Let's take a simple example for if else. So let's say double salary is 45,000 and character gender is male, then print the initial salary. Then if the gender is F, then the salary is salary plus 5% raise, and else salary is salary plus, let's say, 10% raise. And try to print the updated salary in the end. So let's try to compile this code and execute it. So the gender is male, and for that reason, we got a 10% raise. Let's try to change the gender to F and execute, compile, and execute. So for gender female, we have got 5% raise. This is how we can use if else. Let me copy the console output. Let's look at another example. For example, we need to take an input from a user. We need to take a number as an input from user and find out whether that number is an even number or non-number. So for that, we need to use scanner class. For us to be able to use scanner class, we have to import Java util dot star and scanner sc is equal to new scanner. We need to take the input from the user system dot in, close the parenthesis, then should ask the user to enter any value. I'll just use print. Then we need to assign the int n equal to sc dot next int, and if n percentile 2 or modular division 2 is equal to 0, then let's print n is even number. Else n is odd number. We don't need this. Save this program. Put it in examples. Let's try to compile. I missed semicolon. Compile. Then execute. Enter in value. I'll enter 56. 56 an even number. Let's try to enter 7. 67 is an odd number. Okay, let's summarize the conditions or if and simple if and else if blocks. So what is the concept? and then the number of conditions you use, and then the number of true blocks, and then the number of false blocks. So first one is a simple if. We have only one condition, then we have only one true block, and we do not have any false blocks in simple if. Now let's look at if else. So we have one number of conditions, we have one true blocks, we have one, then we have one false block. Now let's move on. Oh my God, I was just putting it in the program itself. Just remove this. Okay, now let's continue to explore third statement, which is else if. So when should we use else if? If we want to evaluate multiple conditions, then we should go for else if. Let's look at the syntax. If condition one, then execute a block of code, then else if condition two is true, then execute some block of code, and else if condition three, then execute a block of code, then so on, so forth, and one last else without any condition, which is kind of default. This is how the syntax looks like. Let's see some examples using else if. So let's try to write a program to take user inputs for three numbers and find the biggest of all. So we should use the scanner class to take the user inputs, and let me try to say enter a value, then assign int a is equal to se next int, and then do the same thing for b, enter b value, int b is equal to se next int, then enter c value, then assign C is equal to SC dot next int. So now let's build the condition. If A is greater than B and A greater than C, the system out print line A is biggest number. Else if B is greater than C, then B is the biggest number. Else C is the biggest number. Let's try to compile this code. SC, variable SC is already defined. I copied multiple scanner SC. I don't need all these. I just need declare it one time. Now try to compile and execute. Enter A value 243. 6344 is the biggest. Let me try with some more. $84,027 is the biggest number. Let me take the console output and then paste it in the notes. Now let's add the summary for else if. So number of conditions, we can put n number of conditions. Number of true blocks, we can put n number of true blocks. Number of false blocks, we will only have one false block. So the next statement we have is nested if. And if condition within another if is called as nested if. So let's take one simple example. Scanner SE is equal to new scanner system in, and let's try to enter age of a person. And int age is SE dot next int. And then, for example, if age is greater than or equal to 1 and age less than or equal to 100. Then let's write another if condition, age greater than or equal to 18, and then 10 system out print line, let's say eligible to vote. Else system out print line not eligible for vote, and else not a valid age. Let's try to compile this code. I think I've missed one flower closing if block, and save this, compile, execute. Enter age of a person, let's say 56, eligible to vote. Let's test again. Let's say 15, not eligible to vote. Let's say 345, not a valid age. This is how a nested if else or nested if block will work. Example for the nested if. We paste the output for nested if. So now let's summarize nested if. We can nest any number of conditions, and we can have any number of true blocks, and we also can have any number of false blocks in nested if. Now let's look at the switch case. Before we go to switch case, let's look at some conclusions. Curly braces are optional in if statement, but without curly braces, we can only have one statement. If you want to have multiple, then you have to utilize curly braces. So let's look at switch statement. For example, let's take a program where if you enter the day number, then you should tell the day. For example, if you enter 1, you should say it's a Monday. And else if you enter 2, then it should be telling us it's Tuesday. And if you enter 3, it should be telling us it's Wednesday. So on and so forth. So this equal to operator, we have to use 7 times, which increases complexity. For that reason, we have switch case. Let's look at the same example with a switch case. So let's take the user input and let's say enter a number and try to take day as next int, and instead of if, we just use switch block and we should use the day to find out which day it is. So let's say case 1, then system out print line. Just print Monday. And you have to use break for each case. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Day 2, it's Tuesday. Day 3, it's Wednesday. Day 4, it's Thursday. Day 5, it's Friday. Day 6, it's Saturday. Day 7, it's Sunday. This is how a switch case example looks like. Let's try to compile this. Compile, execute, enter the day number, Friday. Let's say 7, Sunday. Let me enter something which is not defined. So it doesn't give me any result if I enter something which is not in the list. So for that reason, we can set a default case and say invalid day number. Let me save. Oh, I was doing it in the notes. Let me put it in the program. Save it and then compile, execute, enter day number. Let me enter 6. It is a Saturday. Enter day number. Let me enter 67. It says invalid day. I put this in the notes. Sorry, this is in the program. So let's look at some conclusions on the case, switch case. Duplicate case labels are not allowed. For example, if I reuse one, try to execute or compile, it says duplicate case number. So we cannot reuse or we cannot use a case number, duplicate case numbers. And another note is case labels must either be constants or constant expressions. It cannot be variables. Let's also look at the allowed values for switch case arguments. Byte is allowed. Short is allowed. Int is allowed. Long is not allowed because long is a big number and we cannot use those many switch cases. Next, float is also not allowed. Double, obviously not allowed. And char or char is allowed. Boolean is not allowed. So let's summarize the switch case. Number of conditions, you will have only one. Number of true blocks, you can have a number of true blocks. A number of false blocks, you can have only one false or default block. I will stop here. See you in the next.